to the deep stuff. Combat. Combat have been simplified. Combat has been simplified in second edition, while also it's been expanded yet simplified. That's like what I'm doing with this whole game, is expanding the options, expanding the customization, but simplifying in a way that keeps the game at its core. I can't explain it, but it's better. I'm going to briefly go over again about the Popcorn Initiative. I know I mentioned it in a previous video, but Popcorn Initiative basically is after a player takes their turn in combat, they get to choose who goes next. So all you have to determine as a GM is who is the very first person to take an action in combat. If it's an ambush, then obviously the person ambushing is going to be the first person to act. And then after that, the player or NPC chooses who goes next. If it's like an enemy NPC, they try to choose someone that's gonna, harm the PCs. If it's an allied NPC, then the GM will try to help the players and choose a character that's beneficial to the party. Now, why wouldn't all the PCs just want to go at the beginning and let the NPCs act last? That's because if you act before your opponents, you act before characters in a turn, your defense is lower if they're trying to attack you later on, unless you spend exertion. So if you have a bunch of exertion, then it doesn't matter. If someone attacks you, you can dodge. Otherwise, it goes against your reaction score, which is kind of like your DC in D&D, or if you played first edition, it's your reaction defense. It's like a baseline to hit number for your character, but it's a little bit lower than if you got to roll your dexterity and your dodge. Then there's a mechanic called stagger. I'm just going to read this. If you score a critical success when attacking your opponent, they become staggered unless they roll health plus poise with a difficulty equal to the damage dealt. So I just got a critical success against Larry. I shot him with my gun. I did 16 damage. Now he has to roll health plus poise. He rolls it, he gets a 10. He spends some reverence, he tries to, roll it again. He gets a 9. Sorry, Larry, you are now staggered. Characters remain staggered until they take a turn. So if Larry hasn't acted yet, then you're going to try to, coordinate it so that he doesn't get a turn. He doesn't get his turn, and let other people try to, hit Larry before he gets unstaggered. As soon as Larry takes a turn, he's no longer staggered. He doesn't have to spend any actions or exertion. He's just no longer staggered as soon as he takes his turn. Now, how you can exploit this, let's say combat starts, Larry punches you in the face. Then you shoot him in the knees. He becomes staggered. And the combat round has just started and he's staggered now. Now you can have all your allies attack him while he's staggered because he can't dodge. And his defense is lowered by quite a bit. Now at the end of the round where he's staggered, if you have one of your allies choose who goes last, they get to choose who acts first the next round. They can have all your allies keep dogpiling Larry, and he's going to be toast, basically. Now, if Larry's got an ally, eventually that ally is going to say, alright, it's Larry's turn, he's no longer going to be staggered. So it's another layer that adds on to the strategy behind Popcorn Initiative. Now, what makes being staggered so devastating is that since your defense is lowered to such a degree, it's like almost half of your reaction defense. You have a stagger rating basically on the sheet, Go to that quick. Stagger is listed on your sheet. It is your fate rating plus poise, which is typically a lot less than your dexterity plus dodge. Now, let's say you have a stagger rating of 3, something crazy like that. Everyone's going to have a difficulty 3 to hit you. They're going to be constantly hitting you. If you get hit with a melee attack, the damage is doubled. And with firearms, if you're shooting somebody with a really low defense, you can do what's called a called shot. And one of the options for called shots is dealing double damage. Now, I just kind of quickly scrolled by the 9 combat actions. Now, in first edition, combat actions took up like 4 or 5 pages, and they each had like way too many rules associated with them. That's all been simplified and condensed. It's essentially the same thing, but now there are 9 combat actions that fit on 1 page. Move. You move a number of units, yards, meters, equal to your speed rating. Simple as that. And like I said, you get 2 of these per turn. You can use an item / reload, which is reloading a gun, not dropping a weapon, but like basically if you have like let me see here some examples. You can use a radio, use a fire extinguisher, just a general use item action. Just carry over from first edition. Defense. If you are worried about getting attacked later on in the round, you can reserve one of your actions for defense, and that means that even if you are attacked later on in the round, it's treated as if you haven't taken an action yet, and you get to roll dexterity plus dodge as normal. Melee attack, straightforward. If you're close enough to someone, you can hit them with a knife or sword or punch them. And another cool thing about melee attack is if they're staggered, you deal double damage. Fire is specific to weapons. In first edition, I had stats. Your skills were like handgun, automatics, rifle. Now it's just firearms. There's just 1 skill for every shooting weapon. And you roll perception plus firearms to shoot against your opponent. And if you hit, you deal the damage to your gun. There's also some other things to help calculate your to hit, such as the weapon's range, the accuracy of the gun. I won't get into that, but straightforward. In first edition, there was a stance thing. You could be aiming from the hip, you can be ready, or you can be aiming. Now, with this system, it's essentially the same thing, but it's been reduced to just an aim action. And every gun will have a bonus you get if you aim. So if you're shooting a gun, but you keep missing, you can take an action to aim, and then you get a bonus to hit. Simple, effective. That's the way it works now. You can also disarm somebody. Rules for trying to get a gun away from somebody or a knife. You can tackle them and restrain. These were both wrestle actions in first edition, but they have rules that explain how to restrain someone so they can't act, but neither can you. Or you can tackle someone to the ground and try to knock them over. Now, each one of these actions has special nuances to them. I already mentioned called shots earlier. There's also rules for dual-wielding guns or dual-wielding swords called akimbo. Dual and triple tech. It's just a little blurb talking about how that works in combat. Special melee attack rules is introduced attacks of opportunity, which is a system I totally made up and didn't steal from any other role-playing game. Whereas if a character is right next to you and they walk away, you get a free attack of opportunity, and there's ways of getting around it so you don't get attacked. But that's a rule added. Momentum attacks is if you are running up to somebody and then you attack them with a baseball bat, you get a bonus to your damage based off of how fast you ran up to them. A little blurb about unarmed attack damage if you're hitting somebody with your fists. It just tells you how much damage you deal. Overwatch is a new action. A friend of mine on my Discord suggested it. I think he said it was in Delta Green, which I haven't played. I know it's good. I want to play it someday. I just haven't found anyone who runs it. But Overwatch is you basically choose like a 45-degree cone of view. You get your gun ready. If anybody walks into that 45-degree cone, you can stop combat immediately and say, I'm shooting this person right now, and it allows you to kind of like basically cover a spot. If someone's peeking around a corner, you fire. If someone's running past real quick, you can interrupt their movement and fire. Kneecap is specific to firearms. It allows you to specifically try to stagger someone. So if you're not trying to deal damage, but you want to put them off balance, you can aim for the kneecaps. Standard rules about shooting past an ally. If there's a crowd of people and you're trying to hit a certain one, there's rules for that. Spray and pray. If there's a crowd of zombies and you have an automatic weapon or a flamethrower, you can spray down the entire crowd. Then there's other. I'm starting to get into the deep mechanics. I will say about recovery options though, it's been simplified way more than first edition. The way death works is if you have negative hit points, you do a health plus resist death roll with a difficulty equal to twice the amount of negative hit points you have. And if you fail that roll, you're dead. First edition also had something called mutilations, and that is carried over to this system as well, but instead of having a deck of cards, which wasn't really necessary, you just roll a d12 now, and the higher you get on the d12, the more severe the mutilation, and depending on the type of damage you're receiving, of these 8 different damage types, there's blunt, cutting, bullet/piercing, fire, electricity, explosions, acid, and cold. Depending on what type of damage element you're getting hurt by, that will determine what type of mutilation you get. I'll just do one example quick. Let's say you take acid damage and you got mutilated. If you're about to take lethal damage from an attack, you have to take a mutilation. Instead of going into negative, you automatically get at least one mutilation. Usually mutilations reduce your damage, but sometimes they can just outright kill you. But let's just say acid and you roll high, you get like an 11. So you go down to the 11, and as you can see, the little acid icon is here. If it wasn't, like if it had, let's say I got a 10, little acid icon has an arrow going down, so that means you go to the next one over, which would be 11. Right here, if I rolled a 9, I would actually go to 8 instead. I mean, if you read it, it'll make sense. But basically, you roll d12, you find your icon. Acid here says you get limb loss. You took critical damage from acid. You're going to lose an arm. You're going to lose a leg. You might lose your head. I'll do one more example quick. Let's say you have a blunt and you only roll a 1. 1 says, okay, go down 1 because you're not going to get a scar from blunt, but you could get winded. The attack deals 0 damage. Your character has the wind knocked out of them, and then you get a penalty. You can't take actions unless you spend exertions because you're kind of, you hit me in the gut with a baseball bat. I didn't take any physical damage, but I'm winded. So that's mutilations. It's straightforward. And yeah, that's the basics of combat. Next chapter is GM stuff. So I think I'm going to stop for the night. I've been talking about this a lot, and there's so much to talk about. And I haven't even gotten into the SCP universe stuff yet. Maybe I should do one more video, but there's a lot of stuff talking about the SCP universe. I love mechanics, which is why I've been making all these role-playing games for so long, and I wanted to make one for the SCP universe, and I think this one fits it perfectly. I have all these different chapters talking about how the Foundation works, how humans work, cognitohazards. I get into how weird you want your game to be, how many characters are allowed to have anomalous aspects. There's also something called a weirdness level. That's how common anomalies are in your universe. Because the game doesn't stick to one canon. It doesn't say you have to have the Foundation be this global organization. This role-playing game lets you choose how your game runs. Let me give you a quick example, and then I'm going to be done. But plus my voice is going. Unusual phenomenon scale, that's what it's called. This is how prominent the SCP Foundation is in your campaign. Unfounded is like there's no Foundation at all. You play as civilians. Small Foundation, medium, global. Global Foundation is like standard on the SCP Wiki, where the SCP Foundation has sites all over the world. And then it goes even further. You can play a Broken Masquerade. You can play Anomalous Country. You can play Vanguard. These are all SCP canon universes, and it talks about how you would incorporate them and to what degree. But I'm losing my voice, so I think that's enough talking. I'm going to end the stream now, and what else was I? Yeah, the GM section and things to come are the last things I need to talk about, but maybe I'll do those some other time. So that is me talking about SCP, the tabletop role-playing game. I have totally lost my voice now. Alright. I'm going to end the stream now. End the YouTube video. I'm probably going to edit this later. Maybe won't. I don't know. But, Zombie Mouse out. Again, this is coming out summer of this year, most likely. I've got 18 things to do before the book is released. Maybe I'll just mention those quick. See, I won't shut up about this. I have a list of 18 things to do. I'm not going to get into it. Also, here's my new logo. 26 Letter Publishing has a new logo. Extra, extra. Alright. Talking too much. I'm going to go. Hope you watched it. If you did, leave a like. If you got to the end, type in the comments, fucking, I don't know, Zombie Mouse sucks. And then say, what a loser. Alright. Thanks. Goodbye.